Professional matrix cutters, people that cut this Queensland matrix opal for a living, will often stabilize that material before they start cutting it. This reduces wastage, it makes the cutting easier, it makes the end product a lot nicer in the way that it looks. This is not something that's really available to most hobby cutters because it requires you to have things like, a big 10-inch saw to slab them out, requires you to have a vacuum chamber, requires you to have cactus juice, which is a stabilizing resin that's used in the turquoise industry. Imagine matrix opal is like a sponge, and you use the vacuum chamber to pull the cactus juice into the sponge, and you stick it in a big commercial oven, which you can see back here. The oven will solidify the cactus juice and make it such that the slice of matrix opal is one thick, hard piece. Makes it easier to cut, makes the final polish better. What I've done here in creating these lots for you guys that are stabilized matrix is I've done all this process, so all you have to do is the cutting process, right? So you take your template, you put it on the stone, you draw the shape that you want. If you've got a setting, you calibrate the stone at that point, make sure you're cutting it the right size, you cut it, and then you're done. This stabilizing process actually creates a really nice finish on the stone, so you don't have to resin coat it. If you want to resin coat it, you can. Now, a couple of last notes here. Once you're finished with your cabochon, this material, you only take up to 3,000 or higher grits on your novas, but you do not use cerium. Cerium oxide will get caught in the pores, and it really doesn't work on this. Cerium is specifically for using high content silica material. This is matrix opal, which has the amorphous silica combined with other material like a sandstone. So cerium oxide is not your go-to in this. Some people like it rough so that they just use it in its natural form and you can see the color, and that's great. Other people like to put a coating on it that makes it more glassy. You see a lot of the material that we sell in the shop here, that's been resin coated. So we just use a 2-part resin like the epoxy 330 that I carry in the shop. You just need to make sure it's a resin that cures really hard like epoxy 330. Or I've used a top coat nail polish, which also kind of works pretty well. There's a bunch of different ways that people do this. Liquid glass is another thing that I've seen used. You just need to make sure it's something that is hard and it doesn't yellow over time, right? Usually you coat it with the epoxy. Starbond Thin also works really well, and then you put it on like a Ziploc bag to dry. Once it's dried after a few days, you can come back and clean up the edges around it and call it good from that point.